Hello everyone, this is Marieanne the Artsie Crafter. Welcome to my channel. In this series, how to make a Christmas journal from scratch. This is what we made last week, last video. I don't know why I keep saying last week. Anyway, and so we put the fabric cover on our journal. We're going to do the front and back inside panels today, and then we're going to put a second layer on some of the backgrounds that we painted the last time, and then make some more backgrounds, and then we're going to start working on some of these pages. So as usual, we have a lot to get through today, so let's get started. This one here, we're going to this is the yellow one. I've got two here. We're going to do another one here, but we'll finish this one first. So all we're going to do is use that. I cleaned up my paint wells here. This is the yellow ochre, that gold yellow. Then I'm going to use it in the tube. I think I would have found it by now. There we go. Yellow ochre. It's just the darker gold. So just going to put some. So you just spray this and then put some in a little dish. You can have one of those plastic paper plates or plastic plates or one of these. You don't have to go out and get one of these especially. But anyway, I'm just going to put some in here. Squish it in there. And then get my water spray and spray some water in there, and then get some. You can also use some coffee spray. You don't have to, just to add a little bit of different color to it, and then of course some paper, and if you've got piece of scrap paper, just to show if you got the right color or not. Make sure I was painting this morning, so my brush is still got some green in it, so I might use another one, I think. Okay. Mix up some of this here, like that. I might spray a bit more coffee spray in there, and then mix all that up. Then I'm going to use a sponge, just make it a little bit damp, and then rinse it off so it's fairly dry, and then there we go. I've got some green paint. So we're just going to basically pounce it on the page like that, and then just to give you a bit of extra texture here, and then you can just keep pouncing in a little, and you don't have to do it all over, just in places, just to give you some difference of color. And spray on a little coffee spray and work that in. That's basically all you're doing. There we go, and you're finished. Looks darker than it is. Then it should be lighter when it comes out. So this one here, we're basically going to do the same thing, but we're going to wet the page. Move that aside here. So we're going to put some, getting all mixed up here. This time we're going to use a paintbrush, just a big paintbrush, and we're going to put some more yellow ochre in one pan here. Oops, probably a bit too much. And then just a bright yellow normal yellow in next to it. Spray it with water, and then we're going to spray the page with water. You want a fair amount of water so you can see the water sitting on the surface for this technique to work. I don't know if I can get you. You can see that the water is sitting on the top of the page. Make sure it's all over. Just move it around a bit to get it nice and wet. Okay, and then we're just going to make sure our brush is very wet. Just dip in some colour and then just dab it all over the page like this. And then get the other colour and dab on. You don't have to mix it in, just get it all over the place. And then spraying on some more water. Got a little bit too much there, take that off. And all you're going to do is swirl it around the page, the paper, like that. Blend. So doing this is the way to blend your colours together, but you still get some variation in colour as you go. Get it in shot, and then if you can't, the colour won't spread, you just dab on a bit more water to the edge like this and encourage it to get to the edges. Keep dabbing it until it goes where you want on the page. Make sure you're getting the edges as well. It's a little bit of a messy process. There we go. And then keep moving that around the paper. Just keep blending that colour like that, moving it backwards, this, until you get, if you want a little bit of more colour in one area, just dab it on there and just let it bleed out. Want some more variation in colour here, so I just dab that colour on and then keep swirling it around. So we'll be stamping on top of this, so this isn't just the background. So, and getting some variation in that colour. If you get lines of colour or ridges, just leave it. It all adds to the design. So I'm going to try and keep it in shot. Let it go all the way to the end. You can see that colour moving. And then just keep moving around. And then when you're happy with the design, just set it aside and let it dry. So you can see all the different variations of colour and texture. Okay. Just clean up my mess. Okay, move this aside for now, and we'll get on to the next one. Next one is, I'm going to use a stencil and I'm going to do this one here. So all we're going to do first is, like we did yesterday, use the makeup brush here, mix up some paint and then brush it on. You can do, I've got two different colors here and they can blend together to get some quite deep green, a cool green and a warm green. So we'll do that. So we'll mix up our colours. Just leave that there for you to look at so you know what we're doing. So for this, if you got one of these, I use, this is close to a sap green, just mix some of this with yellow, and then I've got some yellow here already, and so this green is a little bit cooler than this one, so just get a nice warm sap green or grass green, or what's the other colours they use? Just as sap green or medium green. It's a warm green anyway, so I'll put that in here. And then get a small brush, spray some water in. I'll just mix in a little of this bright yellow and get it a little bit brighter. Every time you do this, you're going to get different colours, but that doesn't matter. So that's that green, and then you use a cool green here. I'm going to use not the sap, if I can find one. Actually, I'll just use this green here because I can't find, which you can see here we used some of it yesterday, but I'm going to make it brighter. Just add some, dip it in there and put it in your dish there. So and then I can put some sap green in, or there's normal green. You can add these together, make it a little bit lighter. So the shades don't matter as long as you've got two different shades there. That's all that matters. Just to give you some variation, you don't have to have it vary. You can just use the one color green if you wish. So same as we did yesterday. We've got some got some tissue, I should say, and put that aside. So if you don't have leaves, you can use, because it's Christmas, I mean, you're going to get the reds and the greens and a bit of this coffee dye. That's very Christmassy. You can use a different combination of colors if you wish, but this is the one I'm going with. So all I do is I set the and it pays not to muck up your pages, so set the stencil down. Make sure this is the, on these pages, I don't know why I mentioned before, usually there's a smoother side and a textured side, so it depends on what side you rather have. But I'm just going, might go with this side because put some water, drop some water on the other side. So just line that stencil up, and I've got my tissue paper, and I just dip a little bit in there and tap it off, and then you can just start stenciling. Tap it off. Tapping it off means you're not going to get excess water on your stencil, so it's less likely to bleed under. And then I'm just going to go straight into this darker green, tap it off, and you can overlap the colors. You can use any combination you want, so tap it off and stencil it on. These ones aren't as probably not as dark as what I did before, but if you move the stencil while you're working, don't worry about it. It's the, as I said before, these are all background pages, so just move on. I don't have any large stencils, so I'm just using a small one, so just continue on. You can mix them all up, get all different blends. Very simple. Oops, there you go. I move the stencil, but it doesn't matter. Tap it in, tap it off, and rub it on. Go over. Continue on. I'm going to use 2 at the same time and see what happens. Just have fun with it. This is all about, this is why it's so good to do your own background pages, because there we go, it's all finished. That's all you have to do, and just put it aside to dry. This is what I love about making my own pages for the journals. It's just so much fun making all these background pages. You can just have so much fun. Go ahead and experiment and make different ones. I mean, that's what I did with this one. I just went ahead and I made different pages and just picked out the ones I really liked and put in the journal. So they don't take very long. Clean our stencil down. So that's done. As I said, these are very quick and easy to do. So the next one we're going to do is this here. We're going to make a chocolate brown on one side, and what was the other color? A mottled cinnamon brown on the other side. And the colors that I'm using, we use the chocolate brown, or use the cinnamon brown first, and I just used burnt sienna, which, if you've got one of these trays, is what's closest, kind of this color here mixed with the dark brown will give you a nice brown color. And then the yellow ochre that we used here, use that. And then I've got them in the tubes, burnt sienna. The beauty about watercolors is you can just leave this to dry, and then you can spray it again, get it wet again and reuse it. You don't have to clean them off, clean out your trays like you do with acrylics or oils. So I just put in some burnt sienna. And yellow ochre, spray the water. I might add in a little bit of the dark brown here, just we'll see how we get the colour. And I'm going to clean off my brush, just dab it on some tissue paper. Just concentrate these. So we're going for like a cinnamon, I can't even say the word, cinnamon and colour like this. And I might just add in a little bit of that dark brown, just to enrich the colour a little bit. Tap that in. There we go. That's all you have to do. And I'll show you on here what it looks like. Cinnamon brown colour. There we go. So all you have to do is on one side, so I divided this page into 2 halves. So one side, because we only need a little bit, so we only need to do half a panel. That should be good enough, and you don't have to worry about where these panels are going to overlap in the middle. And then just put your colour in, so we don't wet the background page. Just put it on as is. It's a very pretty colour. I'll just add a bit more of that dark brown in there. Make it a little bit darker around the edge. There you go, nice and quick. And I just go crossways, smooth out that colour a little bit. Oops! This is what happens when you don't tape it down, but we don't want to tape it down because we're not doing a painting, we're just doing the background. So there we go, and that's done. Now you can just use whatever is left over on your tray there, and we're going to make this dark brown into this teapot. So using the dark brown, I think I added burnt sienna, raw umber and Payne's grey. So that's this colour that you mixed up first, those two, or if you've got a burnt sienna. And here, burnt sienna, I'll just put a bit more in the tray. You want that colour, and your Payne's grey. If you haven't got Payne's grey, mix up some white and black to make a charcoal colour. And then the raw umber, which is this colour here. It's a dark, cool brown. So just do a combination of each. I've got like half and half, a third of each here at the moment. We'll see how that works out. Get my brush cleaned up. There you go. Mix that up. And I can see that we need some more Payne's grey. It's a little bit too light. You want a really dark chocolate colour. Let's see if I got enough there. Still think it's a little bit too light. Make sure you mix the colours up well. Yeah, that's something like that one. So I'll have to put some more Payne's grey and raw umber in there. There you go. And the raw umber. And less water. No more water. I think that is much better. It's a nice thick consistency. There you go, that's much. And then you can do one layer, and then you can always do another one on top. I don't think I did another one on top of this one. When it dries, it should stay that colour. If not, just do another layer, and I'll clean up there, and then move that down and paint that on this side. As I said, this paper is just thick enough to take the paint. It will curl up at the edges when it dries, but we just fold it out and flatten it out again. Excuse me. Just go in one direction, and then I just cross hatch just to even out the these are just backgrounds, so don't play too much, otherwise it dries fairly quickly. And that's those two. That's all. So put all this away and get on to the next one. Just put these aside to dry somewhere. I've got some room. So we've got one more new one. Oops, I better clean off this before it dries up. Got one more new background to do, and then we're going to start doing a second layer on the backgrounds we did in the last video. So this time, if you've got some bubble wrap, we're going to be doing 2 panels of this. first of all, we just putting on the bubble wrap, excuse me, and then one of the sheets, when the bubble wrap dries, we just spray lightly over with coffee dye. You can see the coffee dye come through at the back there. You can do the coffee dye first, or the I might have done the coffee dye first by the looks, perhaps not. Anyway, we'll put this on and then coffee dye over the top. It's up, you don't have to do the coffee dye. I like my colours a little bit more muted, so all we do here is move that aside, and we're going to get something underneath there. Get our tray back. So this time we'll mix up some pinks this time. Now if you've got one of these, just move that over for a minute. So we want to do a deep cool, like a cherry red or maroon red. So these colours, put these ones aside. Oh, I might need that. So we've got a red here and crimson and maroon type colours. So you can mix all those together and dip in a bit of raw umber and then some Prussian blue and get that deep colour. We'll just use the Prussian blue. If you can't get it that colour, we'll put in some raw umber. But I think we should be right with these ones. So I'll just do that with this here. Show you how to do it. So you've got to spray these colours. Get them nice and wet. And then we get some, we'll start the lightest. See, that's dirty. Doesn't really matter. Just dip that in and spray it again. Clean off my brush a bit better. Okay, so we'll just get some of that colour and put it on the tray. A fair bit. And you don't have to clean your brush off, just add some of that in. And then some of this deeper colour here. And then wash your brush out and dip into this here. So some of this chocolate here, might add some of that to it. And then some more of this brighter red because it's looking a little dull. This is not really, it's close to, but it's not really a cadmium red colour. There you go. Just test the colour. Oh, there, it's a nice cherry red. So when you spray it with coffee over the top, it'll dull it down, or you can keep it that brightness. So anyway, that's our colour, and I'll probably have to mix some more up. We'll just see how we go, because we've got 2 pages to do. And then it's just a case of dipping that in and brushing it on top just lightly over the top of the bubble wrap. This bubble wrap's getting old. I'll have to get some more. Still makes a pattern. So you can vary the colour so it's light and dark over the page, and while it's still wet, just move this heavy and flip it upside down and press it onto the paper. If you've got a ruler or a bone folder, I like to just spread it out a little bit. Hold the plastic one way and spread it out the other, and then peel that off, and there's your bubble wrap. And then whatever's left over, I just put it down there and spread it out. There we go, and I've got it all over my table. So just move it around to get all that off the stencil. Whoops, keeps sticking to my jumper. There we go. That's the first page. Put that aside, and then do a second page. Oh, that's not it. Here it is here. So once again, repeat the process and dab it on. And I think I might have to mix up some more of that colour. So once again, get it nice and wet. Get some of that bright red into the pan. Some of the next colour. And then pull my brush up a bit. And oops, dip it into the Prussian blue. And I did add a little bit of that brown. Like that. And a little bit more of the red. I can put my paste, have your spray bottle facing the right way and not your face. There you go. Okay. Now, brush it on. Hold it in position. Get it nicely coated. You see, it doesn't really take that much. It just depends on. Okay, there, wait, put the paper down, flip it over, and then I'll move that along. Press it down, over, hold it one direction and scrape it the other, like that, and then I might turn this around, it'll be easier to see. Place it down again. These across, hold it one direction, one side, and spread out the other. And I'm just going to use up whatever's on here, if there is any left. There we go. So leave that aside. You can, if it dries, you can wash it off later if you really want to reuse that piece. If not, just leave it, throw it out and put that aside. And that's all we're going to do today. As far as, I know we have one more background to do, so I'll just clean this off. Nearly picked up the coffee spray instead of the water. Would have been interesting. Clean it down. And get back to the last video. And pick up the paper. So here we're going to create a page like this. So we're going to use, we've already mixed up those colors the green and the maroon. So all you do is mix up a little bit more, and then we're going to use a brush. I'm just going to use the fan brush, but you can use any flat or round, a large round brush, or a flat brush. So we'll just mix up some more of that colour. I'll do the, move that away so we don't get paint all over it. This one aside, and then put a bit more water on the paints. That dark blue. This time we'll make it a little bit brighter, so a little bit more of these colors, and this one here, little cherry red, I'll show you what color that is. It's kind of that color. It will dull, become more dull as it dries, so you can get away with using that color as it is. We don't have to put any of the blue in. I think it's nice enough the way it is. I mean, you can just play around with the colors, whatever you want. Oh yes, we're going to do some more of this green, aren't we? So clean off my brush, spray some of this green. Shouldn't need too much, so we've got the warm green and the blue green, so we can mix them together. Here, got something on there. Spray some water in there. So I got some of that, and then I've got some of this blue green here. If you don't have a blue green, you just have this green, just add a little bit of blue in this to make it a blue green. But we want it basically this color here with a bit of blue green in it. So I'm just going to wash my brush out. Just pick up a little bit of that yellow to make it warmer, and the green. As I said, you can make it any shade as long as you've got two different shades. You can make it as warm or as cool as you want. So I did start off this one as the warm colour and this one as the cool colour, but not to worry. There you go. Cool it down a little bit. Okay, so now we've got enough there to sprinkle on the page, hopefully. Move those aside. So then we load our brush up. I was going to use the fan brush, wasn't I? Okay. Get the brush. The brush is wet, and I dip it into and coat the brush in the paint, and then I use the other brush and I just tap it off in places, not all over, just in places, virtually around the edges, I guess, but you don't have to stick to the edges. So this is what you see, the colours. The bigger the brush, the bigger the splotches, like that. Oops, I wanted a big splotch. I haven't done any of this colour yet. Here we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to might spray down, blend some of that colour in, let it bleed a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, if it will move. If it doesn't move on its own, you can just blend it out. just to give it a little bit of colour, not much, just a little bit. Spread out so it will spread a little bit, basically in the corners. This is just decorative purposes. You can do a different design. You may not want to do this at all. So anyway, we'll leave that to dry, and then we'll do the maroon on top. Okay, so that's nice and dry, and then we will repeat the process with the pinky colour. And again, get your brush nice and wet, dab it on, see that? Get it nice and wet on both sides. Get the other brush and then tap it off onto the page. Working around the edges mainly. You don't want to use up all this colour because we're going to actually use that to do the borders, and then I'm just going to wet that brush and then just fan it out. Oh, I did this before, didn't I? Make sure it's in the right. Just spray it with a little bit of water in places and let it spread, if it will. If it won't, just use a brush. Just bleed it out in a little bit, not too much, just it's creating a little bit of a background. There you go. You can leave these lines without having to blend it all in, and that will give you an impression of leaves in the background. Well, that's what I think they are. So. And now we're going to get a flat brush, just a small flat brush somewhere, and like this one, and make sure it's wet. And then, as you can see here, I just went around the edges with a light wash of the pink, so it's nothing special. You can do it messily, so just water it down a little bit, just on the edges there, close to the edges. It might show up in the design when you cut it, the page up, it might not, but anyway, you can do it as thick or as thin as you want. I'm just going to go around like that and wash that off, and then I'm going to spray some coffee, the coffee dye, and spray that in here. Give a fair amount with the colour, and then wash that brush off. I can dry the brush off this time because this is fairly wet, and then I just go over, just let this dry a little bit, and then I do go over the top of the red, and just messy like that, so you can let the coffee dye pool a little bit in places just to get the colour on. You can let it bleed a little bit on the page. This is just decorative element. Could leave the red to dry completely and then do this. Doesn't matter. You can round off the edges if you want. There you go. So, and then just leave that to dry. That's our second layer, and then when all that's dry, we're going to, before we finish, I should do what I do with the other colours and splatter this onto the page. some of this coffee dye, like I did with the other colours. Just a little bit like that. Some nice big splotches would be nice. Can't get them. Need a bigger brush. Nope. This definitely won't give me some big blotches. Show you. Anyway, got a couple there, not many, but anyway, doesn't matter. We'll leave that aside to dry, and that's that one. And then clean off this mess. As you can see, doesn't take long to do these. Once you get started, this page here is what we're going to create. These little flecks here are actually the lace paper. So we put that green on behind yesterday. So we're going to do the lace pattern over the top, and then we'll coffee spray over that, and hopefully we'll get some of these drops. And then, excuse me, when that dries, we'll put some white and gold splatters on top. Create that background page. So I'll put that aside. So when I do use these doilies, so sometimes I use 2 layers at a time. It's just because they can get very wet. It just helps them to stay together without tearing. But you can just use one if you want to. And then the color, we just can use the color you already mixed up. Put up here, which is these two. You can do a blend of those, and go clean off my makeup brush. So basically what's happening here, we have color theme, as I mentioned in the beginning, of the traditional colors of reds, greens, and some brownish colors. And all you're doing with these background pages is you're keeping to the color theme, but you're just varying the colors and the patterns, and putting them all together and create an interesting elements on your page with all your pockets and tucks. When you put all the different papers you created together, you can get some really interesting designs or interesting finishes. So all I did was put this down, and need again some tissue paper. Same process before. I might water this down a little bit because it's starting to dry out. And then I'll start with the lighter one, and I'll just tap it off, and then you just rub it in. So I might use a darker one. Sometimes I get confused about tapping off and tapping on, and rubbing off and rubbing on. I tend to do them the wrong way around. So there's your design there. It's a pretty lace pattern. So all I do now is just to keep moving it around until you got your whole page covered in this pattern. So we keep going. Just move this color. It tends to go around on the sides of the bowls. Move it in towards the center so I can get access to it. And as before, keep tapping on, tapping off. There we go. Then just keep overlapping wherever you want to do it. There you go. And a little bit more. And just this side. Got much colour left. There you go. That's all you have to do. And I'm going to get this edge on the hair. Should be enough colour on the brush just to fill in some spots around the edges. There we go. That's all you have to do. So pretty. Okay, that one's done, and we don't need this one anymore. Still good enough to reuse one more time. So that's that one, and then that's it. Gone through all the pages for today, so we can clean this off later. Put the paints away. Clean this down, and then we can get back to creating some of these pages in the journal itself. So the first thing we're going to do, some of these background pages that you've just painted, we'll be using, I think, one of them anyway. So here, this one here is the one that you sprayed yesterday with the coffee spray. This one here. Coffee sprayed this yesterday. Going to use this on the, I'll get the new journal. Don't you hate it when you lose things? It was just here. Probably under these mountains. Oh, here it is. Mountains of papers that are drying. Here we go. We're going to do the back, the front and the back inside covers. So we're going to cut these panels down and put them in here. Like that. Cut it down and just glue them in. But before we do that, this one here, if you want to have a side pocket like this one here, I'll show you how to do that. This paper here was fairly sturdy, but I did put a backing on it. If you have delicate wrapping paper, if you're going to use the wrapping paper as the pocket cover on the panels, then we're going to make the pocket first, and then just glue the panels on top of the pocket. So that will measure that down. This cover is 6 inches wide by 8 inches high, or I've forgotten what was that in metric. 15 by 20.4. No, sorry, 15 by 21 centimeters. So when I cut out the panels to put on the pages, I usually make them a little bit shorter so you can see the border. If you want to go right up to the edge, that's okay, but I find it's just easier to leave a little bit of a border around the panels. What I mean by border is you don't put it right up to the edge of the page, you just leave a little border, and I usually make it about what is it, 1/8 of an inch all the way around, or 1/2 centimeter all the way around. So before we cut them out, these out, this panel out, this will make two, a front and back. If you've got the A4 or copy paper size, it will make two panels of, if you cut the panels, will be 5 3/4 wide by 7 3/4 high, or in metric it's 14.5 centimeters wide by 20 centimeters high. So I'll just put that one aside, and then you're going to cut out your pockets here. These pockets will depend, because I'm using these panels, I didn't want to cut them up. These panels are 3.5 inches wide, so I allowed for that and I cut these down to close to 3.5 inches. Anyway, they were supposed to be 3.5 inches. Didn't do a very good job on cutting them down, but because with the pocket edges, I like the top panels to go right on top to the edge of the pocket. Wherever your pocket's going to open, I like the decorative panels to go right to the edge. It reinforces that edge for one thing, and to me it just looks neater. And then you can have a border all the way around, depending on where you are, which way it's positioned. With this one here, because our background panel is going to be the 7 3/4 high, these are your pocket bases. I usually have got a pencil, so I cut this to 7 3/4 inches high, but I also added 3/8 of an inch on either side as a hinge. And what we're going to do is those hinges, we will turn them over and we will attach them to the back of these panels. So when I will do one, so you know what I'm talking about. So this one here, I've already measured it and scored it with this scoring tool that I use. This here. But if you haven't got that, as I said before, you can use just an edge of a plastic card or a thin knife or a blade or whatever. And I just put the ruler on the mark, and then I run this along a couple of times, and then that just makes it easier to turn these hinges over. So I'll do that on both ends. You see them? Sometimes they're a little bit hard to see, especially if you don't score them hard enough. And then when we cut out this panel, so this one here, I'll cut it out for you and I'll show you how to put it together. So I've already measured it to the right height and width. Just get the cutting tool and cut it down to the right height, and then already cut the panels down to the right width. So just cut them in half. So put one panel aside, and so this will fit in here like that. And this is the one that you put the hinge on the top and the bottom. So I just place the hinge over the top edge here and the bottom edge so they fit. So sometimes you just bend this one and then wait, because the thickness of your paper will depend on this other end. So I have to readjust that to fit there. And you just move it to the edge of the paper. I didn't bother doing the bottom, just the tops, because when you're, my way of thinking, when you're putting wherever's going to go in your pocket, when you move it in and out, the edges here, if you put the hinge on the top, it's more likely for the glue to lift up and your pocket come up at the edges, which is very annoying. So this way, tucking it around to the back of the panel means it'll stay down more securely and look a little bit neater. And you also get access to, I mean, it doesn't matter because this is such a big pocket, but sometimes if you've got a little pocket, you don't get access to the total width of your pocket because you've got glue going along here. So this just gives you, makes a little bit of a bigger pocket. So they're just options. If you want to glue this to the top of the panel, glue the panel in and then this to the top, that's up to you. So what I usually do, so this will go on top and I'll move that to the border. So this one has an edge there, so I could cut that down if I wanted to. If there are different options, you could have it in the middle there, cut this down a little bit so you have that background border all the way around. Excuse me. My voice is going. It's up to you which way you're doing it. This is the way I'm going to do it. I'm just going to put the glue along here, which is this edge here, and then the top and the bottom onto the background panel, and then I'm going to glue that in, and then I will glue this on top. It's already cut out, and I might cut this down so that is exactly this width. Before we do all that, you just go ahead and if you want to do inking around the edges, this is a good time to do the inking on the edges. So we get the ink out and your dauber and just go around and ink. You won't see this edge, so you don't have to ink the edges you don't see. You just ink these outside edges. Yeah. This. So if I don't end up inking all the edges on everything, it's just a given that I would normally ink the edges, but because I'm doing a tutorial, I might not stop and do that because it does take up a bit of time. And we just want to get this journal made, don't we? So, okay, I'll just move this up a little bit. So this is how it's going to go on. You've got the edge inked up. I'll cut this to the right width this time. I'll just put this against the edge here. I'll measure it. Oops, wrong end. That. A ruler and a craft knife. And cut it down. See the marks. That one's done. Do this other one. Same thing. To the edge. Make a mark. Cut it out. Like that. So this one I decided I'll go on the front inside panel because it says Merry Christmas, and then this other one will go on the back panel. So we'll put that aside, and I probably lost the back panel. Oh, here it is. So I'll just ink that up while I remember on one side. Oops. This paper is fairly sturdy, so I don't really need a backing to do the inking. There we go. You don't need to ink these because they don't show up, and you don't need to ink the pockets. So that's all done. Move everything out of the way. And then that's at the back. One for the front here. I'll glue this on onto this first, the way it should be. So this is the side I'm going to glue, so I hold on this side so I know it's not too bad because you can flip this around, but sometimes things get turned around and you don't know which side you're supposed to be putting the glue on. So I usually hold the side I'm not going to glue, so it reminds me not to glue on that side. So you glue on the, I glued on the wrong side. It's me talking. It doesn't matter because it's going to get glued to the page anyway, so this time you want to glue this on this side because you're actually going to stick this on the back of this panel. So all I do is, this is the side it's glued. I just put that top hinge down on top there and line it up with the side here. Good for getting in position. Like that. Line it up to the edge here. Make sure it's right on the top, because this is the side I readjusted, so I'll do it the other way. This is the side that I did the first hinge, so you glue that down. This is the second one I had to readjust, so get some tissue paper and like that, flip it over, and because I got glue on the back as well, haven't I? So makes it a bit messy. Make sure that's nice and firm against that top edge, and there's your pocket. And then I usually put it, get all that other glue off. So I usually glue it to the page before I put the top panel on, just in case you have an accident or something. So there's a little bit of the hinge sticking out. Cut that off and glue it on. And glue, get all the rubbish off there. Glue it down. I've got you in shot. Good. Make sure all the edges are nice and glued. And place it down, center it. I thought I'd cut this a little bit bigger, these panels, but it's supposed to be an 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I don't know what's happened there, but as long as it covers the outside fabric, and tease it down the edges. Fortunately, this glue, I didn't use the fabric glue because this is fabric, because this glue on the bottle it says it glues fabric anyway, but like that, and that's done. Now we're going to put this panel on top. That, and your pocket's finished. You can get it in closer to there, but I like to keep it away from the spine, just so it doesn't bulk it up. You don't get too much bulk on your spine. That's just my personal preference. Just get it onto that edge first off, and then smooth it out. And there's the pocket made, your first pocket. Now it's ready to tuck in like this, and you've got the full height of your pocket to use. And then once we've done that, we'll do exactly the same thing on the back, but I won't do that because I've already showed you how to do that. So, but we'll be doing exactly the same for the back panel. So you can go ahead and do that. And I think we will leave it there for today to give all our papers time to dry. We will continue working on our Christmas journal in the next video. So for now, I'll say goodbye and thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a happy crafty day. Bye everyone.